Welcome to the channel. Thanks for being here. I'm Nero. We're going to take a look at the OCC Winners Deck USA Italy Control. I don't know if necessarily it's straight control. That's what I call it. But we'll get into it. We'll spend a few minutes on the deck, take it for a ride in ranked, see how we do. Let's take a look at the curve real quick. It's an interesting curve. The 2-drop slot has essentially been abandoned. We have 9, 10 drops. No, 10 1 drops. 10 3 drops. Then we go on the high end of the curve. 15 orders, but 2 of those are production orders, so they're kind of units. So 18, 21, I'm going to call it control deck. When I first looked at it, I thought to myself, man, this is a pile. This is a pile. There's choices in here that you just don't see that often. But we'll take a look at it. Before I do that, what's the shirt say? Right? The shirt says, do I look like a people person? Nah, don't talk like it either. Right? So what do we have in the deck? We'll look at the early plays. Direct hit you don't see very often. 1 damage to a unit. Destroy the unit if it has 0 operation cost. Great for 35T. It's a 35T meta, in my opinion. There's a lot of things you can do in the meta, but really it's that 35T, whether it's coming from 20 Panzer, the other 35Ts. So that's 1 credit to destroy a 2 credit tank. Or if the tank is pumped or buffed, it's good. It's very efficient. Almost always trading above parity. 1 JASCO. United We Stand, 2 of those. Production order. The late game bombers. Only 1 supply priorities. I'd like to talk to the champion just on his card selections and choices. But we'll come back to supply priorities in a minute. 1 AWOKEN Giant. Obviously, when you don't have units in the early turn, odds are you're going to AWOKEN Giant, which typically isn't played. You can defend it, draw a card off of it. Enemy spotted, I love it. Big fan of the card. 1 air defense. 2 M10s. A 39th Bologna Regiment. 332nd Engineer. Devil's Brigade 2, which is good because there's some Alpine synergy going on in here. 320 Pathfinders. Great card. Probably the best U.S. Elite overall. Decisive Defense. 5th Rangers, lying for a day. Attacking the colonies, deal 3 damage to an enemy. Your HQ gains 3 defense. Thunderbolt, a little bit of ramp with war bonds. MACCHI. This is usually my preferred finisher, that and the bombers, 24s, that come off the production order. 7th ALPINI gets you back in the game. This is risky, though. Some of the Alpine stuff, there's a lot of Devil's Brigade that's played. So it's coming in and destroying units. P-51B, the Devil's Brigade, destroying the units. The Alpine units. P-51B, high altitude bombing. What you'll notice, though, in this, which I think is potentially a vulnerability, this deck is doing a lot of 1-for-1s, right? Just kind of spot order removal. Generally, a control deck is going to try to have some kind of way to deal with a massive board presence. Trading above parity. The opponent has spent a lot of credits to develop the board, and for fewer credits, you're dealing with the whole board. It's not present. You have some, the 2 guards, the 39th and the 7th ALPINI, just to kind of protect a little bit. But when I really looked at it, I mean, do I love the deck? No, because I don't love anything.
I don't want your soft energy.
But I don't love the deck. I like it. I think it's good. I don't think it's great. It's just an assortment of cards that have great utility. I would think it's going to probably you're really going to have to know what your opponent is playing, identifying. That's what a typical control deck is going to do anyway. There's a lot of pilot skill in here. You're going to have to know the decks that are in the format, which is much easier to do in an OCC because it's an open deck list. But if you were to take this on ladder, you're going to have to understand the meta a lot know what threats need to be dealt with. But there's just a lot of incremental value, right? The United We Stand can gain an extra credit slot, because you would think, wow, there's not really a lot of ramp in here. There's incremental ramp. There's one extra credit slot. There's an extra card. Enemy spotted is drawing cards. Air defense can deal with those. It's really good against Germany, Japan, and the fighters they bring down. But think about direct hit on the German plane, the 4-drop plane with 0 out cost. It's 1 credit, pal. You've done it. 332nd extra credit, right? So it's foregone the war machines and just gone with this incremental value. And this whole deck is like that way. Just incremental value all the way through. But you're going to have to understand, when you have kind of a toolbox type thing and there's incremental value, you really have to just understand the fundamental turns, understand the deck your opponent's playing, what threats have to be dealt with, what threats maybe not so urgently. But we'll go ahead and get into a game and see what's going on. Thanks again for being here. Stay safe and be well. Game 1, first game of ranked with USA, Italy control. Well, we have Britain as the HQ. And I would say that, and I've still put, if I see Britain as HQ, I'm still putting it as a ramp or control variant. But a lot of times, it used to be like 70-80%, but there's a lot more exile that's going on right now. But I still have to make a decision. I don't know if this person is playing exile or not. I'm going to put it, if that's the case, if they're on Brit ramp or some type of control variant, none of this is going to help me. I'm just giving him all the time in the world to develop and do things. So I don't want to wait that many turns. We're just going to do a full mulligan. All right, so if it is exile, we're in great shape, but we weren't mulliganing for it. It's just when you have United We Stand, air defense, we've got some early plays, because when the opponent's playing exile, they're just trying to curve out on their air units. So at this point, I'm kind of hoping that it's exile, but I don't know for sure. And if it's some type of Brit ramp or control, at least we have a 5th Rangers to try to apply some pressure. The rest of the cards are just going to have to wait. It is exile. That's actually good for us right now. So we've gained an extra credit slot. The reason I don't mind the exile matchup with this deck is it's not like they have a massive board presence. It's going to be a support line dominant deck, and that's perfectly fine. So in the next turn, we should be at 5th Rangers, push to the front to apply some pressure and make them deal with it. Sure, we have an answer for that, so no worries. We've drawn the Bologna Regiment, but we're not going to play the guard right now. There's no reason to panic. Just go ahead and put the 5th Ranger, apply pressure to the front. One of the ways to beat exile is you have to be able to deal with their support line by either playing a deck that gets to the support line quickly, or you're going to have to be order-based where you can deal with those units. And we kind of have both. We actually have 3 things. We have the 5th Ranger that can apply pressure, take out a unit if necessary, or we can race. We have the Bologna Regiment, which can guard up and buy his time. And we have a countermeasure for removal. So it's a good place to be in this particular game. Sure. And he's playing the deck correctly. You know, I've often said that Exiles is really more of a burn deck and they just race, and you really want to go face and not trading things out. So that's good there. I didn't know if that was going to be hammer home or not. Didn't matter. We can still have the counter. But I really just don't know. I'm really paying attention to where the cards are being played from his hand. And as the game goes on, I don't know what these are. This really could be potentially double hammer home, maybe. I'm not sure, but we'll see as it goes as it goes on. This is great because now we have two answers. A, we can go ahead and get the 4 damage in. We have a countermeasure that we can play. Hopefully he'll attack with the 4/4 into it. And we also have the removal card for the Hurricane. So we're in really, really good position. Things can change, obviously, but certainly like where we are. I've seen the Exile decks run this. I don't mind it. I don't run it myself, but I've seen it, so I'm like, okay. But this is removing this is not an Exile unit. So if he does have Hammer Home, it's for the MS. It'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. Yep, well played, opponent. So now we can guard up. Hope he attacks with the MS. But I'm just paying attention to where he's playing his cards from. Thank you, appreciate that. So he's drawing, but these cards are never coming into play. So we had that. That's fine, but that's, again, not an Exile unit. I think these two cards are Hammer Home. We can be patient. We don't have to worry about Hammer Home at the moment. He's got to get an Exile unit on the board, which we've dealt with the early Exile units. It was probably a good starting hand. Sea Patrol, sure. He probably feels more comfortable now. But again, we talk about the incremental advantage, right? We've got 10 credits to 7. Macchi can come down and get some things done. We've gotten 7th Alpini, which is an interesting draw. Usually you love that, right? But if he's got Devil's Brigade or he's holding on to Devil's Brigade, which is a possibility, which I wasn't considering until I drew the 7th Alpini. If that's the case, I don't want to, if he's got Devil's Brigade in hand, I don't want to play 7th Alpini now, right? He's got 4 damage. We have 5 with the Macchi. So you want to get the pressure and get him to 11. So the order of operations or the sequencing is to try to get him to, when you play Devil's Brigade, if he's going to try to Hammer Home or do some other things, he's got to play the Devil's Brigade, which removes the Alpini, and push it, but he's going to be short on credits to really flush this support line out. So order of operations is Macchi into 7th Alpini and see where we stand. Just double checking the card. He's certainly not going to trade 2 units into it. I mean, he can if he wants to. I'd be fine with that. But he's not. We'll just keep with the sequencing. Now he's playing the card here that he just drew. So when he plays this unit, there's no way, in my opinion, that he has any other Exile unit in his hand. Because you don't want to Hammer Home this. That's like the weakest of the Exile units. So I'm thinking this is the only Exile unit. I still think he's stuck on Hammer Home and not able to play it and get any value whatsoever, which is good for us. But this tells me right now his hand is super weak. Burn spells maybe, but that's fine. We've got Alpini. Sure. It's the optimal play. Now we could go with Macchi now and get him to 1, but if he's got Sea Patrol and other burn spells, there's a chance that we lose the game. So it's just attack Alpini, and if this is Devil's Brigade, he's not going to be able to really threaten us for lethal, and we would get it on the next turn. So he's got issues, right? If he has Devil's Brigade and he has to deal with the guard. How many credits does he have? Let's see. 9? Yeah, so he'd be at 9 credits. Devil's Brigade would have to come out for 3, which would destroy the Alpini, but then he's got to push it if he's got another Exile unit in hand. It's not doing him any good. Like, this support line is not really strong for him. But if he did go Devil's Brigade, push it, that's 4 credits. He's got 5 credits left. He attacks for 4. Maybe he has another sea patrol. So would we go to 3? But this is still in play. He doesn't have a way to deal with that. So we would just win the game on the second MACCHI. GG, opponent. Thanks for being here. Stay safe and be well.